Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into something really thought-provoking?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Well, today we are going to be exploring this essay called Learnable Programming by Brett Victor.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it really makes you rethink how we learn and teach coding.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like you're just memorizing commands when you're coding
Totally.
without really understanding what's happening?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Victor argues that there's a better way. He
hmm
says we've been focusing too much on syntax and not enough on actual understanding.
I like that.
He makes this analogy.
Oh,
It's like trying to learn how to cook
okay.
by just randomly hitting buttons on a microwave,
Huh?
but the buttons don't even have labels on them,
Oh, wow.
right? You might get some results,
Yeah.
but you wouldn't understand why.
Exactly.
You wouldn't understand what's happening.
Yeah, you wouldn't have the concepts down.
Right,
It's
exactly.
just kind of randomly doing stuff.
You just know, push this button, get pizza.
Right. Push this button. Fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So Victor says programming is about thinking, problem solving.
Yeah.
It's not just a skill.
Thinking.
It's more than that.
I like that.
It's like saying knowing about pencils means you can draw like Da Vinci.
Right. Right.
It's not the same thing, right?
The tools,
Tools are important,
but not the whole picture.
but they're not the whole picture.
Yeah.
So what does he propose instead?
Well, he argues that people understand things best when they can actually see them in action.
Okay.
So traditional coding hides a lot of the process,
Yeah.
which makes it harder to grasp the core concepts.
So it's like a cooking show
Yes.
that only shows you the ingredients
Haha, yeah.
and the final dish.
And the final dish, yeah.
But you miss all the steps in between.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
You miss the important stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's his critique of even live coding.
Oh, really? I would have thought seeing the results in real time would be helpful.
It can be, but it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
seeing a map with only the start and end points.
Okay.
You're missing the journey, like all the twists and turns and the landmarks.
You're missing all the good stuff.
Yeah, you're missing, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the context.
The context.
Okay.
So how do we get that map for our code?
That's the question.
What does he suggest?
Yeah.
Well, he lays out some really fascinating principles for a truly learnable programming system.
Okay.
And these apply to both the environment we code in and the language itself.
Okay.
So two sides of the same coin.
I like that.
Yeah.
So let's unpack that.
Okay.
What does he mean by the environment?
He says the environment should be designed to explain itself,
Okay.
to make the meaning of everything transparent,
Like a user interface.
like a good user interface.
So instead of digging through documentation,
Right.
the environment would make things clear from the start.
Ideally. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Imagine just like hovering over a piece of code
Right.
and seeing a clear label of what it does.
Yeah. Oh, it does. Exactly.
No more guessing games.
Right.
No more looking things up. No more Stack Overflow.
It'd be a game changer, especially for beginners.
Especially for beginners, yeah.
Yeah.
But even for, experienced programmers, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So what about actually seeing the code, like the effect of the code?
Yeah.
How does he address that?
So he says the effect of the code on the data should be shown directly in context.
Okay.
Think about spreadsheets.
Yeah.
They're so popular because all the data is right there in front of you.
You can see it.
Right.
Yeah.
And he wants to bring that same level of transparency to coding.
Okay, so we'd be able to see the state of the program at each step,
Yes.
like watching the numbers change in a spreadsheet.
Precisely.
Okay.
He also talks about visualizing the flow of the program.
Not just seeing it as a static list of commands.
How would that work?
He talks about representing time at different levels, line by line,
Okay.
frame by frame, even down to individual events like button clicks.
Okay.
Imagine seeing your code's journey through time on a timeline,
I like that.
like a map of a neighborhood.
Yeah.
You'd start to see patterns emerge
That's really cool.
in the program's execution.
Yeah, it would make it a lot easier to understand.
Much easier, yeah.
So anything else about the environment?
One of his big points is eliminating hidden state.
Okay.
He says anything that affects the program should either be removed or made visible.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I've definitely been confused by hidden states before.
It's like trying to follow a recipe without being able to see the ingredients being mixed together,
You know something's happening, but
but you don't know what.
you don't know what.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Victor argues that every action in the code should have a visible effect, making the program state tangible.
So we wouldn't just be reading the code.
We'd be watching it play out.
You'd be watching a movie.
Kinda, yeah, exactly.
Let that.
He even gives this example of visualizing the transform matrix in graphics programming,
Okay.
something that's usually pretty hard to grasp.
Yeah, for sure.
But imagine if you could actually see how those matrices were changing the image,
Yeah.
like rotating or scaling it.
That would make a lot more sense.
It would make so much more sense.
It would.
Yeah.
Okay, so Victor wants to make everything visible.
He does.
Understandable.
Yes.
But what about actually writing code in this ideal environment?
He talks about this idea of creating by reacting.
Mm.
Think of an artist sketching.
Right.
They're constantly adjusting and responding to what's on the canvas.
Oh, going with the flow.
Going with the flow, yeah.
Yeah.
And Victor argues that programming environments should embrace this same approach.
So we wouldn't just be typing out lines of code and hoping for the best?
Not at all. He wants us to be able to get something visual on the screen quickly
Okay.
and then shape it from there, experimenting and discovering solutions as we go.
So it's like the environment would be working with you,
Yeah, like a partner.
not against you.
Exactly.
I like that.
It's all about shifting the focus from meticulously planning every detail in your head
Yeah.
to actually playing and experimenting in the environment itself.
Okay, so this creating by reacting sounds really powerful.
It is.
Is there anything else he suggests for how we write code in this ideal environment?
He also talks about the power of having all your tools and building blocks laid out in front of you,
Okay.
like dumping out a box of Legos.
I like that.
Yeah, and seeing all the pieces.
Yeah.
Instead of just seeing a long list of functions, you can actually visualize the possibility.
It sparks creativity.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then there's this really interesting concept he calls creating by abstracting.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Okay, yeah.
What does that mean?
It's about starting with concrete examples
Okay.
and then gradually generalizing them step by step.
Hmm.
So you always understand what's happening.
Okay.
Imagine having tools that allow you to seamlessly transition from using specific numbers
Okay.
to using variables,
Okay.
from writing a single line of code
Right.
to creating a loop or a function.
So it's like the environment would guide you through the process of abstraction
Exactly.
and make it less intimidating.
I get much more intuitive.
Yeah.
It's all about making those leaps in understanding feel natural and manageable.
I like that. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the environment, but what about the programming language itself?
Oh, yeah.
Does
Right.
Victor think that needs to change too?
He does.
Okay.
He argues that languages like JavaScript and processing, although they're popular,
Yeah.
can actually hinder learning
Really?
because of their reliance on hidden states
Hmm.
and ambiguous function names.
So even if we had this amazing environment, the language itself could still get in the way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like having a beautiful kitchen,
Uh-huh.
but the ingredients are all mislabeled.
Okay.
It's going to be hard to cook anything good.
You're going to end up with something weird.
Exactly.
Right.
He draws inspiration from languages like Logo, Smalltalk, and Hypercard,
Oh, interesting.
which were carefully crafted to support how people actually think and learn.
Okay, so tell me about those.
Yeah.
I've heard of Logo with its turtle graphics. How
Sure.
does that fit in?
Logo is a great example.
Okay.
The turtle metaphor lets you embody the code, walking through actions to draw shapes.
Okay.
It's a brilliant way to connect the abstract world of code to the physical world of drawing and movement.
So instead of abstract symbols, it's about concrete actions.
Exactly. And since you're thinking in terms of the turtle's actions,
Okay.
the code becomes so much more readable
Yeah.
and understandable.
It's like you become the code.
Kind of.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And Victor points out that Logo encourages decomposition
Okay.
by letting you teach the turtle new words, which are essentially sub-procedures.
Okay.
This makes it easier to break down complex tasks
Yeah.
into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Breaking things down into smaller pieces is key.
It's huge
Yeah.
for understanding any complex process.
Not just coding.
Yeah, not just coding.
Yeah.
So how about Smalltalk?
Okay, I've heard of that, but I don't know much about it.
Okay.
How does that support Victor's vision?
Well, Smalltalk takes a different approach,
Okay.
focusing on the metaphor of objects, sending messages to each other.
So instead of a list of commands, it's more like a conversation
Yeah, like a conversation.
between different parts of the program.
You got it.
Okay.
And Victor points out that this metaphor
Yeah.
aligns really well with our natural ability to communicate
Okay.
and interact.
So it makes it easier to think about how code works.
Much easier, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any examples of how this message passing idea plays out?
Sure, imagine you have a bank account object and you want to deposit some money.
Okay.
In small talk, you would send a deposit message to that object,
Okay.
along with the amount you want to deposit.
Mm.
It's like saying, hey, bank account, please deposit $100 for me.
That's really intuitive.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot less like a set of instructions
Yeah.
and more like a natural interaction.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
And Victor emphasizes small talk's approach to breaking down programs into these independent objects that communicate with each other.
Okay.
It really aligns with how our minds work.
I can see that.
It's a way of organizing complexity that feels natural and manageable.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to see how small talk fits into this idea of learnable programming.
Cool.
What about HyperCard?
HyperCard. Okay.
I remember hearing about that a while back,
Yeah.
but I never actually used it.
It's a fascinating one.
Okay.
It brings a sense of physicality to programming with its card-based interface.
Okay.
Objects literally have a presence on these cards,
Interesting.
making them feel more concrete,
Okay.
less abstract.
So instead of imagining these abstract objects floating around in the computer's memory,
Yeah, you can actually they can see them,
you can see them.
interact with them directly.
Yes.
Interesting.
Like having a tangible workspace
Okay.
where you can arrange and manipulate elements visually.
Okay.
And HyperCard was built for easy recomposition. Copying and pasting objects from other programs was a core part of how you worked.
I've definitely run into issues with code reuse in other languages.
Yeah, it's a common problem.
Sometimes it feels like trying to fit square pegs into round holes.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
But HyperCard encouraged a culture of sharing and building upon each other's work,
Yeah.
which is often missing
Right.
in more traditional environments.
It's more collaborative.
Yeah, much more collaborative,
Love
more
that.
fun. It's like building with Legos.
You start with basic blocks and then combine them in creative ways.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got logo, small talk, HyperCard.
Right.
What other examples does Victor highlight?
He talks about this cool game called Rocky's Boots,
Okay.
which uses visual metaphors to help you understand complex systems.
Interesting.
It's all about learning how electricity flows through wires and components.
So making the invisible visible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rocky's Boots lets you grasp these complex concepts
Okay.
through direct interaction and observation.
I like that.
You're not just memorizing facts.
Right.
You're actually seeing how things work.
It's more engaging.
Much more engaging.
Yeah.
And that's the essence of Victor's argument.
Okay.
We need to find ways to make programming more tangible, more relatable, more like interacting with the real world.
Okay, so Victor has all these inspiring examples of systems
He does.
that embody his principles.
Yep.
But he's also pretty critical of existing systems, right?
Oh, he is.
That fall short.
Very much so.
Okay.
He specifically calls out JavaScript and processing,
Okay.
two languages that are widely used in educational settings.
Right.
But he argues that their reliance on hidden state
Hmm.
and ambiguous function names makes them harder to learn.
Really? I thought JavaScript was supposed to be beginner-friendly.
Yeah, it can be.
Okay.
But for one, the meaning of a color value in processing
Okay.
can change depending on a hidden global color mode setting.
So something that seems simple
Simple on the surface?
can actually be really complicated.
Yeah, it can be much more complicated. So it
Yeah.
makes it hard to reason about what the code is actually doing.
Yeah.
It can lead to unexpected results.
Right, especially when you start combining code from different sources.
Exactly, especially for beginners, that can be really frustrating.
Yeah, totally.
Uh,
So are there any other issues with these languages?
He also points out that processing
Yeah.
makes recomposition or combining code modules more difficult than it needs to be. It's like those Legos we were talking about earlier, but some of them don't quite fit together properly.
So you end up spending more time wrestling with the language
Yes.
than actually building something cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he contrasts this with HyperCard's seamless approach to copying and pasting objects,
Right.
which encouraged a much more fluid and creative workflow.
It sounds like he's saying the design of the language itself
It
can really affect
Yeah.
the learning process.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think that's a key point.
Yeah.
You know, we need to be much more mindful of these principles of learnability
Yeah.
when we're creating these tools and languages.
Right. For beginners and experienced programmers alike.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now, some people might argue that these ideas sound great in theory,
Okay.
but aren't practical for large, real-world projects.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
That's a common misconception.
Okay.
Victor actually argues that these principles are even more important in complex professional settings
Okay.
because as software becomes more intricate,
Yeah.
the need for clarity and understandability only increases.
The stakes are higher.
Stakes are higher, yeah.
If you're working with a huge code base,
Right.
you need to understand how everything fits together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't want to be lost in a sea of code,
Right.
especially when you're working with other people.
Cool.
It's essential for collaboration.
Okay.
So Victor actually asks this.
Okay.
How can we truly create by reacting if even small code changes
Yeah.
require a complete relaunch of the application?
Okay.
It's like having to destroy and rebuild an entire city
Wow.
every time you want to move a single brick.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
That's a really good analogy.
It's incredibly inefficient.
Yeah. So
But-
what does he suggest as an alternative?
Well, he points to programming models like Smalltalk,
Okay.
where the state of the program persists even as you're making changes,
Right.
and Closure, which emphasizes the use of immutable data structures that can't be accidentally modified.
So instead of constantly restarting from scratch,
Right.
you can make changes on the fly
You
and
flip
see the results.
and see the results immediately.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
It allows for continuous experimentation and feedback, making it easier to iterate and refine your ideas.
Makes sense.
And he doesn't stop there.
Okay.
Victor also challenges the assumption that visualizing the state of complex programs
Okay.
is impossible.
But how can you visualize something as abstract as code?
Right, exactly.
Especially when it gets really complex.
Well, he proposes designing data structures that are inherently visualizable
Okay.
from the ground up.
Hmm.
Imagine building a city where the layout to the streets and buildings was designed
Okay.
to be easy to understand from a bird's eye view.
So instead of navigating a tangled mess of code,
Right.
you could zoom out and see the overall structure.
You could, exactly.
That's a good way to put it.
He envisions a world where opaque, convoluted data structures
Yeah.
are seen as archaic and undesirable,
Okay.
and where clarity and visualizability
Right.
are considered essential qualities of good code.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a pretty bold vision,
It is.
but it sounds like something we should be striving for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
His essay is really a call to action,
Yeah.
urging us to push for tools and systems
Okay.
that prioritize understanding and empower creative exploration.
Hmm.
He sees a future where programming is no longer shrouded in mystery and complexity,
Okay.
but is instead a transparent
Yeah.
and empowering medium
I like that.
for anyone who wants to create and problem solve.
So it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
what would the world be like if programming was as accessible and understandable
That's a great question.
as reading a book or watching a movie?
Yeah, something we should all be thinking about.
Yeah.
You know, if we can make programming more learnable,
Yeah.
more intuitive,
Hmm.
more engaging,
Right.
we can open up a world of possibilities
Yeah, for sure.
for individuals
Yeah.
and society as a whole.
Okay, so Victor has laid out all these principles for learnable programming.
He has.
He's given us some really inspiring examples of systems
He has.
that embody those principles.
Yeah.
But how does this all translate into practical advice
Right.
for someone who's actually learning to code,
Yeah.
or trying to improve their skills?
That's the question.
What would you say to someone who's feeling lost
Yeah.
or frustrated
Yeah.
with the complexity of programming?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things to remember
Okay.
is that you're not alone.
Okay.
Feeling lost or frustrated
Yeah.
is a natural part of the learning process.
Especially with programming.
Especially with programming, it's a complex field
Yeah.
and it's constantly evolving.
Right.
So don't beat yourself up
Okay.
if you're not getting it right away.
Okay, so cut yourself some slack.
Cut yourself some slack.
Yeah.
Be patient with yourself.
Hmm.
And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Okay.
There are so many resources available. Online communities, tutorials, mentors.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to reach out
Yeah.
and connect with others
That's a good point.
who are also on this journey.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that
Yeah.
you're not alone.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
And I think Victor's essay really highlights the importance of finding the right tools
Okay.
and approaches that work for you.
Right.
You know, not everyone learns the same way.
Right.
There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
So you need to experiment a little bit.
Experiment.
Yeah.
Find what resonates with you
Okay.
and what helps you understand.
So it's not just about learning the syntax.
Right.
It's about finding the tools that fit.
Finding the right tools.
Yeah.
The way you think. And the way you learn.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to, step outside of the traditional box
Okay.
of how programming is usually taught.
Yeah.
Explore different languages,
Okay.
different paradigms, different ways of thinking about code.
It's about finding your own path.
Finding your own path, yeah.
Okay.
And embracing the joy of discovery.
Yeah, I like that.
I think that's really what Victor is getting at. It's
Yeah.
not just about, memorizing syntax.
Right.
It's about really understanding and being able to express yourself
Yeah.
through code.
So it's a creative process.
It's a creative process.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like that.
And I think
Yeah.
for anyone who's feeling stuck or discouraged,
Mm.
just remember
Okay.
that the ability to code
Yeah.
is a superpower.
It is.
It allows you to create things,
Right.
to solve problems,
Yeah.
to build things that have never existed before.
To shape the world around you.
Yeah, to shape the world around you.
Yeah.
And that's an incredibly empowering thing.
It is.
So don't give up on it.
Yeah.
Keep learning.
Yeah.
Keep exploring.
Keep pushing.
Keep pushing.
Yeah.
And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be the one to create the next generation
Hmm.
of learnable programming tools.
Right. That would be amazing.
It would be.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome.
I think it's something that we all need.
We do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Sure. So like a bank account object,
Okay.
you want to deposit some money.
Okay.
In small talk, you'd send a deposit message
Okay.
to that object
Okay.
along with the amount you want to deposit.
Okay.
It's like saying, hey, bank account,
Uh-huh.
please deposit $100 for me.
Oh, okay.
It's like talking to it.
A lot more intuitive.
Right. It's not like, some abstract function call.
Yeah, it feels less like instructions.
Yeah, exactly.
And more like an interaction.
It's a conversation.
Right.
It's like a request.
Yeah.
I'm asking you to do
I
something.
like that.
Yeah. And Victor emphasizes that small talks approach
Okay.
to breaking down programs into these independent objects
Yeah.
that communicate with each other
Right.
really aligns with how our minds work.
Yeah. It's like a community
It is, yeah.
working together.
Yeah. They all have their own responsibilities,
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
own data,
Right. Yeah.
and they interact to achieve a common goal.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
So it's a way of organizing complexity
Okay.
that feels natural and manageable.
So it scales.
It does.
Yeah.
It scales well.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how small talk fits in
Okay.
with this idea of learnable programming.
Cool.
What about HyperCard?
HyperCard.
I remember hearing about that
Yeah.
a while back, but I never actually used it.
It was really innovative for its time.
Oh, okay.
It brings a sense of physicality to programming
Okay.
with its card-based interface.
Oh, okay.
Objects literally have a presence on these cards.
So you can see them.
You can see them, yeah.
They're not just abstract concepts anymore.
Right. They're not just these things floating around in memory.
They have a place.
They have a place.
Yeah.
And you can arrange them,
Yeah.
move them around.
It's like a visual workspace.
It is like a desktop,
Right.
but for programming.
Yeah, I like that.
And HyperCard was built for easy recomposition.
Okay.
So copying and pasting objects from other programs was a core part of how you worked.
Okay.
It was designed for that.
I've definitely run into issues with code reuse
Yeah, for sure.
in other languages.
It's a pain point.
Sometimes it feels like I'm trying to
Square
fit-
pegs into
Yeah.
round holes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But HyperCard encouraged this culture of sharing
Okay.
and building upon each other's work.
More collaborative.
Yeah, much more
I
collaborative.
like that.
It lowered the barrier to entry
Yeah.
for people to start creating things.
So you could take something someone else made
Yeah, could
and build on top of it.
remix it,
Yeah.
modify it,
Yeah.
make it your own.
That's powerful.
It's really powerful, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, standing on the shoulders of giants.
I like that.
So we got logo, small talk, HyperCard.
Right.
What other examples does Victor highlight?
He talks about Rocky's Boots,
Okay.
which is a game
Okay.
that uses visual metaphors to help you understand complex systems.
I like that. I've always been fascinated by those visible computer projects
Yeah, me too.
that show you how data moves around.
Yeah, it's like demystifying the magic,
Right. Exactly.
making the invisible visible.
Yeah.
And Rocky's Boots, it's all about learning how electricity flows
Okay.
through wires and components.
So you can actually see it happening
You can see it happening.
instead of just reading about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like instead of just describing the concept of a circuit,
Right.
you're actually building one.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the electrons flow.
Yeah.
And you're seeing how different components affect that flow.
It's a lot more engaging
It's much more engaging. Yeah.
than just reading a textbook.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's learning by doing.
Yeah.
It's learning by playing
I like that.
And that's really what Victor's advocating for,
Yeah.
finding ways to make programming more tangible, more relatable, more connected to our everyday experiences.
Okay, so Victor has all these inspiring examples of systems.
He does.
But he's also pretty critical of existing ones, right?
He is.
That fall short.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
He specifically calls out JavaScript and processing.
Okay.
Two languages that are, very popular.
Especially in educational settings.
Especially in education, yeah.
Yeah.
But he argues that they can hinder learning.
Really?
Because of the way they rely on hidden state and ambiguous function names.
So even if we had this amazing environment,
it's not enough?
The language itself could still get in the way?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I thought JavaScript was supposed to be beginner-friendly.
It is in some ways, but it also has its pitfalls.
Yeah.
So, for example, in processing, the meaning of a color value can change depending on a hidden global color mode setting.
So you might think you're setting a color to red.
Right.
But it ends up being blue.
It could be.
Because of this hidden setting.
Exactly.
So something that seems simple
on the surface,
can actually be really complicated.
Yeah, very unpredictable.
Yeah.
And that can be really frustrating for learners.
Totally.
Especially when they're first starting out.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And it makes it hard to reason about what the code is doing.
You don't trust it.
You don't trust it, yeah.
Right.
You don't have that confidence that you know what's going to happen when you run your code.
Are there any other issues with these languages?
He also points out that processing makes recomposition or combining code modules more difficult than it needs to be.
Okay.
It's like going back to the Legos analogy.
Yeah.
Some of the blocks just don't fit together, right?
Right. And then you get frustrated.
You get frustrated. And you end up spending more time fighting the language
learning the tools
than actually building something cool.
Right.
And Victor contrasts this with HyperCard's approach, where copying and pasting objects was seamless. It was fluid.
So it encouraged a much more
creative workflow.
Yeah.
It was about empowering people to create.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's saying the design of the language.
It matters.
It really matters.
It matters a lot.
Yeah.
It can either support or hinder the learning process.
We need to think about that more.
We do. We need to be more mindful of those principles of learnability.
Yeah, for sure.
When we're designing these tools.
Not just for beginners.
For everyone. Yeah. For everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like Venture's giving us permission to demand more from our tools.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to accept this complexity and obscurity as like just the way it is.
Right. We can push for better.
We can push for better. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not just for beginners either.
It's for everyone.
Right.
Like these principles, they benefit everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
From seasoned developers to people just starting out.
Imagine a world where learning to code was as natural as learning to speak.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be incredible.
Yeah, where the code itself becomes a tool.
Yeah.
For expressing ideas and solving problems.
Not an obstacle.
Not a barrier. Yeah.
Yeah.
It should be something that empowers you.
Right.
Not something that holds you back.
But how do we get there?
That's the big question.
It seems like such a huge shift.
It is a huge shift.
From the way things are now.
Yeah, but I think Victor reminds us that we actually have the power to shape the future of programming.
Okay.
By embracing these principles of learnability.
Right.
We can make this vision a reality.
Yeah.
It starts with demanding better tools and being more mindful of how we design and teach programming.
So what can we do as individuals right now?
Okay, well, first, we need to be aware of these principles.
Okay.
And start asking critical questions about the tools and languages we use.
Don't just accept the status quo.
Don't just accept it, yeah. Okay. Don't settle for systems that make you feel lost or confused.
Okay.
Look for tools that prioritize clarity, visualization, experimentation.
Okay.
So it's not just about learning the syntax.
Right.
It's about finding the right tools that fit the way you think.
Yeah, and the way you learn.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And don't be afraid to experiment with different languages and approaches.
See what works.
See what clicks for you.
Okay.
Programming is a creative process.
Yeah.
So find the tools that make you feel empowered and inspired.
It's a journey.
It is a journey, yes.
Okay. So what about those of us who are teaching programming?
Okay, so for educators,
Yeah.
we need to move away from rote memorization and focus on helping students develop
Yeah.
a deep understanding
Yeah.
of the concepts.
Okay.
Victor really emphasizes,
Yeah.
starting with concrete examples,
Okay.
providing clear visual feedback,
Yeah.
and encouraging experimentation
Right.
and discovery,
So making it more interactive,
making it more interactive.
more hands-on,
Hands-on.
less about lecturing at students.
Yeah, it's about guiding them,
Right.
giving them the space to explore,
Yeah, giving them the tools.
giving them the tools.
To make their own discoveries.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
think about how kids learn best.
Through play.
Through play, exactly.
Yeah.
Through hands-on experiences.
All right.
Through trial and error.
Yeah, and it's not just about the code itself, right?
Right.
It's about connecting it to real-world problems.
Exactly.
Things that they care about.
Things that matter to them.
Right.
Showing them that programming is a powerful tool.
For making a difference.
For making a difference. Yeah.
Whether it's building games,
Yeah.
websites,
art,
even analyzing data.
anything.
Yeah, there are so many possibilities.
There's so many ways to make it relevant
Right.
and engaging.
This has been such a thought-provoking deep dive.
It has.
I feel like Victor's essay has really made me rethink
Me too.
my approach to programming.
Yeah, it's a real eye-opener.
It is.
It makes you question a lot of assumptions
It does.
about how things are done.
And it's given me a sense of hope
Yeah.
that we can create a future
A better future
where programming is truly accessible.
for everyone.
Yeah, for everyone.
Yeah, I love that.
So what's really exciting is that these principles of learnability,
Yes.
they can be applied beyond programming.
Absolutely.
What if we started thinking about how to make other complex systems more understandable,
Oh, that's a great point.
more accessible?
Yeah, what if we applied these ideas to science, to math, to economics, to law?
Imagine textbooks
Textbooks, yeah.
that were interactive and visually engaging.
That'd be awesome.
Learning platforms that encouraged experimentation.
Yeah, where learning was more like a game than a chore.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
It would transform education.
It would be like taking off the blindfolds.
Yeah, and seeing the world.
And seeing clearly.
In a whole new light.
Yeah, unlocking a whole new level of understanding.
Exactly. It's about democratizing knowledge.
Yeah.
Making it truly accessible to everyone.
So the next time you're faced with a complex system,
Yeah.
whether it's a piece of code,
Oh,
a scientific theory,
the theory, yeah.
even just a complicated set of instructions.
Right, like how to assemble furniture.
Yeah, exactly. Remember Brett Victor's call?
For learnability.
Ask yourself, how can this be made clearer?
Clearer, yeah.
More tangible, more engaging.
More fun.
More fun, yeah.
Yeah.
How can we make this knowledge accessible?
Everyone.
For everyone.
Yeah, that's the key.
That's a perfect note to end on.
It is.
Thank you so much for joining us
Thank you for having me.
on this deep dive into Brett Victor's Learnable programming.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found this conversation inspiring.
I hope so.
And for all you listeners out there, we encourage you to check out Victor's essay.
Definitely worth a read.
It's a mind-expanding read.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep diving deep
Keep learning.
and keep learning.